us into our very next topic, which is a Vallejo rent spike, which is unheard of in the city of Vallejo. And stuff like this pisses me off. And I hate this because it's poorly done. It's a horrible mismanagement of client funds, investor funds, or if it's their own company. This is just really stupid. So there's a complex, what is it, 75 unit and 60 unit complex?
It's actually two different complexes, both purchased by what we believe is the Reliant Group. On public record, it's shown up as the Cap 9 Vallejo 2 LLC, which I guess is AKA Reliant Group, which is one of their single asset LLCs that they probably use to hold property. And what the group did is they bought a 64-unit building on 154 Richardson Drive, in otherwise known as Strawberry Hill Apartments. And the other property that they purchased was the Holiday Gardens, which is a 90-unit building on 19 Panorama Drive, not too far from the 64 unit.
So what essentially happened here is they bought the building. Most of the rents for a 2-bedroom were about $900, $950. Now, those are below market. Right now, Vallejo is getting about $1,500 to $1,700 for 2-bedroom apartments. And what they did was they just gave them a notice to take them from $900 to $950 upwards to $1,650, $1,700. I want to say it was maybe even $1,800 in one case. So they essentially just doubled the rent and gave them notice.
Yeah.
And that's just horrible. I mean, there's a few things to discuss here. Number one, you're going to end up with a lot of vacancies. Their argument is that they're going to go through and remodel the entire building. But I just can't imagine the numbers are working out. I mean, what did they buy it for?
So I actually went and dug a little bit and looked at public records, pulled up information on CoStar. Now, a couple of to set the premise for a couple of things. The news clip or article was stating that the rents were doubled. Currently, right now, we have a rent gouging law in effect so that you're not allowed to increase the rents greater than 10%. But very specifically, what was alleged was that these rents went from $895 to like $1,900 within less than a 1-year period of time. So that's doubling your rent, which again technically is illegal right now. And in fact, we were speculating different ways as to how they were able to get away with that, or if it's even legal. Because there's even the case of the Marin woman who increased her rent 40%.
40%
went to jail.
In jail, yeah.
She's in jail.
Many people don't know that price gouging laws are in effect right now for the entire state of California. Now, there's some people that will argue it only applies to certain counties that are affected by the state of emergency issued by the governor. But the state attorney general came out and says, no, I interpret this as applying to the entire state of California. So technically, there is a 10% cap on rental housing rent increases throughout the entire state of California. If you violate that, it does come with civil and criminal penalties, and it was set to expire May 31st. And
Gavin Newsom just
extended to December 31st of 2019. And I'm not sure quite when they gave notice, but my guess is with the news article just coming out recently, it might have been in the last week or two. Maybe they were banking on it not being renewed, and Gavin Newsom renewed it anyway. But
it could be the case.
Yeah, there could be a case for price gouging violations.
So I did a little bit of research on one of them. Remember, they bought 2 buildings, and the one that I did the quick research on was the 64-unit building on Strawberry Hill. Now, the information I have on CoStar shows that it was comprised of 34 one-bedroom units at an average of $640 a square foot, and 30 two-bedroom, one-bath units at an average of 915 square feet. Now, on CoStar, it shows that the actual rent at the time was $1,682 for a 640-unit one-bedroom and $1,900 for a 915 square foot two-bedroom. I ran it based on what if the 34 one-bedrooms were at $895, and what if the 32 bedroom units were all at currently $950, which is what was alleged on the news. Now, had that been the case, on public record, it shows that the building closed escrow for $10,100,000. Now, interestingly enough, the company that bought it, Reliant Group, is known for purchasing affordable housing or making rent affordable. Now, that all said, when I looked at the loan amount that closed just in February of this year, it was a grand total of $8,900,000. So if you do the quick math on that, these buyers came in with a down payment of essentially 11.88%. So you're wondering, how is that possible on commercial property that's 5 units or more, especially when a lender typically wants a 1.2 debt service coverage ratio? Now, if you recall in a prior episode, I'd mentioned that the higher the loan amount, the lower the interest rate. Now, also, another clue that I got here was the very low down payment scenario that would indicate that they probably use some type of an FHA financing to buy commercial property. Yes, you can actually use FHA or Federal Housing Administration backed loans to purchase commercial property. And if that is the case, they would have probably got a rate as low as 2%. At least that was the number that I was backing into in order for the property to be able to at least debt service coverage at a 1.01. And now this is only in the event that all of the units were at the previously low rental rate of $895 for a 1 and $950 for a 2-bedroom. On CoStar, it shows that they were already being rented out at the higher amount. So again, this could be a case of a few of the tenants were at that very low rent and they were jumped up really high, but the majority of the tenants in that complex were at the higher rents already. And again, I don't have all the clear picture, so I'm just kind of figuring all these things out. So if these rents were at the lower dollar amount that I stipulated, and they were able to get this low down payment scenario with an extremely favorable interest rate, they could have actually just gone through and did typical 10% rental increases, and they would have been able to go to an immediate 1.2 or 1.3 debt service coverage ratio where they were immediately profitable. However, if they turned around and they did break the rent control laws, and exceeded it by 10% by taking a $895 unit and now making it $1,600, essentially doubling it within a less than 1 year period, then they would have immediately jumped from a 1.0 debt service, which means that they would have been breaking even, which some lenders will allow people to do if they have a lot of, if they're personal guarantees, if there's a lot of liquidity, if they're a very well-known buyer like this group probably was, and they would have jumped to an immediate 2.47% debt service, which means they would have been really profitable. They would have been 247% greater than their proposed mortgage. In essence, they would have gone from the low rents, which would have put them at about a 3.96 cap rate, and they would have immediately jumped to a 9.66 cap rate in less than a year, right? If all these things were the case, essentially taking their break-even income after all expenses and running it at roughly 40% operating expenses, and then if this is the case where they actually took an average $895 and jumped it to $1,600 and an average of $950 and jumped it to $1,900, then they would have gone from a break-even to $48,000 of cash flow after paying a debt service per month to $580,000 a year to an immediate 56.68% ROI. They would have just, there's a couple of things here that just aren't adding up, and I don't have the complete picture because they would be extremely greedy to just jump that high. And yeah, it sounds like they would have an extreme case for a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Especially since, typically what we always encourage is just have a balance between what you're allowed to do, buying properly where you're actually having a profit, but you're not gouging everybody. There's nothing wrong with making a profit. That's what the country is based on. But there is a big problem when you're just doing it too quickly and at the expense of too many people at the same time. And again, the financial picture that I can just kind of piece together from public records, from historical data, and then looking at what the type of loan and the loan to value of the loan and their purchase price that shows up on public record, that 90% or 89%. This sounds like a company that got a lot of purse handed to them, low interest rates, low down payment, and I think they went a little too aggressive on the rental increases, which is probably why they're on the news.
Yeah.